Love in a Cold Climate is a 1949 novel by the British author Nancy Mitford. Officially, it's part two of a trilogy, but that's misleading. Although it shares characters in common with the novels that supposedly sandwich it, it's a self-contained story. It's difficult to talk about the author without first saying something about her family, because the Mitfords, Nancy had 5 sisters and a brother, are famous mainly as a group. Their parents were high-ranking aristocrats. What makes the children interesting is that they can be seen as emblematic of 2 consecutive decades in the 20th century that, on the surface at least, look completely different. The 1920s was all glamour, novelty, youth and excess. The 1930s saw the rise of Hitler, Stalinist tyranny, and the Depression. Nancy, the oldest of the Mitford children, became one of the bright young things of the 1920s. Her siblings were mostly too young for that and didn't emerge into the public eye until the 1930s, when 3 of them aligned themselves starkly with the radical politics of the day. Unity idolised Hitler, and when Britain declared war on Germany in 1939, she shot herself in the head. Diana became a fascist and married Oswald Mosley. Jessica, on the other hand, was a communist. She joined the Republicans in Spain and then later became a US citizen. She signed up for the American Communist Party and then in the 1960s, the Civil Rights Movement. Nancy was born in London in 1904. Politics played no part in her public persona. She grew up to become a novelist and an historian. She fell in love with a Free French officer during World War II, and she spent her post-war years almost entirely in France. She enjoyed a long correspondence with Evelyn Waugh, which has recently been published by Penguin. Love in a Cold Climate is about an aristocratic young woman who chooses to ignore the marital path her parents have mapped out for her and instead marries a paedophile, though she doesn't yet know it. Afterwards, her place in her parents' affections is taken by an openly gay man who's presented by the author as an all-round wonderful person. In many ways, it's a comedy, but although some of the characters are larger than life, they're never quite caricatures. There's always an edge of psychological realism. The plot's quite sophisticated. The protagonist, Fanny Wincham, is a thinly disguised Nancy Mitford, inhabiting Nancy Mitford's own circumstances, and she often breaks in to make social comments which are always perceptive and commonsensical. There are many writers who've tried, with more or less success, to think themselves into the minds of the British aristocracy in its 20th century heyday. Julian Fellowes is an excellent recent example, but Fellowes' work on Gosford Park and Downton Abbey, however valuable it may or may not be, relates to a time before he was born. Nancy Mitford's work, by contrast, is semi-autobiographical. She was there in a way no other writer was, or can be anymore. As she depicted, it wasn't particularly idyllic. Much of it was boring, with bad food, gloomy interiors, a restricted circle of acquaintances, plus endless periods of loneliness. Obviously, you wouldn't go to a normal school, or perhaps any school at all. Your friends would be either cousins or isolated random peers that your parents' guests brought round to your house once every 6 months, who might be more or less nice, or useless, or smelly, or infatuated with Mussolini. That being the case, you'd think no good novel could possibly come out of it. However, before you make that judgment, it's probably best to read this.